U.S. ambassador to the Holy See. Of course, the Speaker, known as the chief architect of the Republicans' contract with America, and obviously a very, very smart man who has navigated his way through the halls of Congress a time or two. Mr. Speaker, great to have you back on the Mike Gallagher Show. It's been too long. My goodness, of course, you're in Italy with your wife. Italy has been just seemingly just ravaged by this coronavirus.
Well, it's been sort of an amazing experience. Ballista, of course, is leading the embassy here, and they are all now working from home. We are dealing with, I think, a very, very serious problem in Italy. Maybe in New York there's a comparable problem building, but in the rest of America there's still...
Well, of course, we're coming from Italy here, so we have maybe a phone line connection problem. You there, Mr. Speaker? All right, we'll try to get him back. Sorry about that. You know, with phones and, of course, an international call like that from Rome, we'll see if we can reconnect with the speaker. But of course, again, with his wife leading the embassy there. Okay, let's see if we can get you back, Mr. Speaker. You got us. There we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I was just going to say, the only stores that are open right now are the grocery stores, gas stations, and pharmacies. People have been instructed to stay at home. And the fact is that if you're not careful and you go out without any kind of legitimate reason, bam, you end up with up to an $8,000 fine.
Wow.
So they're taking it very seriously.
Of course. And of course, as you know, we are here in the United States, but I just had a caller, a well-meaning guy, and I'm hearing a lot of people who are pushing back about, you know, the way we've shut down the entire country in essence here in the United States. And there is that tough conversation we're having. Governor Cuomo this week saying it is unsustainable to keep the economy shut down for an extended period of time. Help us navigate through this concern for the public safety and trying to protect every life we can, and understanding that there's a lot of businesses that will be wiped out by this huge response, and many of these businesses may never be coming back, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I think that the objective fact is that we have to have a strategy which has both healthy Americans and a healthy economy. And that means that the public health people, instead of telling us what we can't do, need to figure out how to tell us what we can do. At the same time, as we rebuild the economy, we want to build it in a way which sustains our public health for all of us. Sure. And, you know, let me give you an example. There are 11 states that have less than 100 cases per state. Right. South Dakota has 30. Now, to close down all of South Dakota, as opposed to testing everybody in South Dakota and then focusing on the handful of people who have the disease, but letting everybody else lead a full life, be productive, keep the economy going. Those are two very different strategies. And interestingly, Sweden, which has followed a much more targeted strategy than we have, actually has fewer cases than either Denmark or Norway, which have gone to an all-out closing things down. So I think there are different ways to approach it. Now, if you're New York City, you frankly have so many cases. Half the cases in the U.S. today are in New York, and almost all of those are in New York City and Westchester. There, I think people really do need to stay close to home, be careful, recognize how dangerous it is.
Let's talk about this $2 trillion stimulus that in the wee hours of the morning, middle of the night, practically, they finally agreed upon. Republicans and Democrats finally agreeing. Mr. Speaker, it's hard for me to be partisan at a time like this. I'm trying to be factual and have clarity, but my gosh, some of the stuff the Democrats wanted to layer into this thing, it strikes me as being inconceivable for people who are afraid right now and need money and need financial assistance. I don't think most Americans are worried about tax credits for solar panels or carbon emissions for the airlines.
Well, I think Speaker Pelosi made a huge mistake. The country is too worried, and the country needs help too deeply to have this kind of game playing. I think it blew up on him. I think that's why you saw Schumer step back in. They have a deal now. My hunch is that the House will pass the deal probably by unanimous consent so that they don't have to come back and vote. And the fact is, when you start having House members who are tested for the virus, you start having senators who are tested for the virus, they're beginning to realize this is not a game. This is real. I think Pelosi made a huge mistake, and it was frankly both a mistake of the head and a mistake of the heart. In this kind of a crisis, you don't try to blackmail the American people, and that's what she was trying to do. It blew up on her. I'm delighted that Mitch McConnell's original strategy, which was put together 5 working groups, make them bipartisan, have them come up with a bipartisan agreement. I think that's what saved it, and I think that Secretary Mnuchin did a very good job representing the president. And I think they're hopefully we're now going to get this thing to the White House and signed in the next 3 or 4 days.
My dear friend Mike Lindell from MyPillow was on the show today announcing an extraordinary move. The MyPillow factories are going to begin today manufacturing face masks for hospital workers. We've heard from Cuomo and states and governors and elected officials saying that we need all the help we can get with protective gear. To hear Mike Lindell make that announcement, because they have manufacturing facilities that make pillows, and make all the great products that MyPillow offers. But now they're stepping up to make thousands and thousands per day of face masks. This is the kind of partnership between the private sector and the government that President Trump seems to be, made for this time.
I think that's right. This is like World War II, where we mobilized American industry, and it wasn't the government ultimately which drowned the Germans and the Japanese in technology. It was all the various American companies. We're seeing the same thing start up again. I loved, I was on Fox and Friends the other morning. The people on just before me were 3 young veterans who had set up a distillery and then realized about 10 days ago that the real shortage wasn't for alcohol, the real shortage was for hand sanitizer. They switched over. They're now making hand sanitizer in their distillery. Budweiser is doing the same thing, and will presently be drowning in hand sanitizer. That's what America should be like. So I'm delighted that we're going to go from my pillow to my face mask, and I think that's a great, it's a great act of patriotism on his part to do that.
It really is. Newt Gingrich is with us in the ReliefFactor.com studios. Now, with everybody home, we're all hunkered down. We're trying to wait this thing out. A lot of people want to curl up with a good book. I cannot wait to get my hands on Shakedown, a novel. You've co-authored a new novel with Pete Early. Tell us all about Shakedown, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I think that people, if you're sick of worrying and you want something to relax with, I think you're going to find Shakedown is exciting. It's based on a historical fact that in World War II, the United States explored setting off explosives underwater to create a tidal wave to drown part of the Japanese islands. In the Cold War, the Soviets took up the idea and explored the idea of using a nuclear weapon to achieve the same thing. And now we're in a situation where we have an Iranian general who looks an awful lot like Soleimani, the guy we killed in Iraq, but we wrote it before he got killed. And we have a Russian billionaire oligarch. And they get together. The Russian brings a submarine. The Iranian brings a nuclear weapon. And they're going to try to blow this up off of Baltimore and Washington to create a tidal wave. And we have our 2 key characters who, in the last book, Collusion, were fighting a Russian effort to poison the U.S. Senate. And now they're out there, Brett Garrett, who is a ex-Navy SEAL, and Valerie Mayberry, who is an FBI agent. And the bureaucracy, as usual, doesn't think it's real, but they persevere anyway. And I think it makes for a very exciting, dynamic book. And I think if you're looking for a way to spend a few hours not worrying about the virus, this is a pretty good deal.
I can't wait because Collusion was the proverbial, you cannot put it down. It's just great work. I can't wait to read Shakedown, Newt Gingrich, Pete Early. Mr. Speaker, please stay safe in Italy. We're so appreciative that you're checking in. We're praying for you and Callista and everybody over there. I know Italy has been hit so hard. and I'm so grateful with you, grateful to you for coming on the show today. Great to
Anytime.
hear
It's
your
always
voice.
fun to be with you.